Hello, everyone. I'm Jesse from Top MBA Consultants. I'm a MBA admissions consultant and the co-founder. I specialize in helping international students who are targeting top 20 programs. And I'm pleased today to be with Anurag, about to be HEC MBA graduate. And so Anurag, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Jesse, for giving me this platform. The great to be chatting with you today and probably be being able to help all our prospective candidates and applicants to top MBA programs. I am Anurag. I'm a medical doctor and ex-military officer turned strategy consultant, and to be a recent alum of HEC Paris MBA program. Great to share my thoughts with all of you.
Excellent. So I wanted to give everyone a little bit of an idea of the agenda for our talk. Want to begin with getting in a little bit to the application process that you went through. And from there, I want to transition into focusing on your actual experience. And that's really where I want to spend more time to help people get a clearer picture of what what you expected going into it, and how that compared to the reality, and really let you deep dive into taking us through your whole experience. And finally, where you've ended up there in Morocco, and a bit about that. So with that in mind, why don't we start with the reason that you decided or desired to transition from the military to the corporate world?
Okay, thank you for the question. In my case, I would say it was very much a sort of obvious choice, a sort of no-brainer, because the military teaches you, any professional military anywhere in the world teaches you a lot of leadership skills, organizational capabilities, etc. I mean, thinking out of the box, uh, thinking strategically, taking charge of situations, etc. And these are exactly the kind of skills that corporates do look at. And in my case, I was fast tracked to quite a few leadership positions, even within the military. Although I'm a doctor, primarily I also served with a lot of infantry units, some very prestigious elite frontline fighting arms units. And I was in a lot of counterinsurgency situations and international border conflicts, etc. As well as I was heading a task force during the COVID crisis in India. So during all of this, I am lucky, I would say, that I got a lot of opportunity to lead from the front. My commanding officers, my senior commanders, etc., had a lot of faith in me. They saw the leadership potential. They egged me on, and in fact, I thank them a lot because they suggested to me that I should be doing an MBA, and from a top school abroad. I also connected with a lot of my B school batchmates who went into, say, engineering, etc. And they also saw the same potential. They egged me on, and so I did have a support system. That was a great thing to do. And I see a lot of synergies between, say, being in the military and going into the corporate world. I would say it was a natural transition.
So this means you were going in as a non-traditional applicant, and how did that feel at the beginning? Did you have much of a business background, or how were your quant skills and all of these kind of things when you're going to be facing the GMAT?
I would say I absolutely didn't have any sort of a business background. But yes, I did get selected for a few consulting fellowships while I was still serving in the army during my last 1 or 2 years, because I knew by that time that I would want to get an MBA. So I was trying to hone some skills, get something on my CV, etc. But of course, no corporate background at all. I had medical experience and military experience, none in terms of corporate experience. Uh, yeah. In terms of quant skills, I would say I used to be pretty good at mathematics in school. But then there was a gap because after graduating from school, once you get into medical college, you lose touch with mathematics. So there was quite a big gap in my case. Which is why, yes, quant did prove a bit hard, I would say, because you need to get back into the groove. Yeah, so I had to put in extra efforts for quant because I was to be honest struggling with the GMAT initially.
How far in advance did you begin preparing?
Well, in my case, I would say I started my GMAT process. My GMAT preparation process took almost a year and a half or so. This
Wow.
is unusually long. Usually, it would take say 6 months, but in my case, I was like getting sent to military exercises in the Himalayas, in the mountains where
Wow.
you have no internet or something. I was preparing for GMAT sitting in the tent sometimes,
Wow, that's
sometimes
incredible.
sitting in a firing range. But
Seriously.
yeah, I was preparing for GMAT, sitting in a firing range at one point of time, and I think that's where the focus comes from. When you can focus in such a situation, then I mean you can't go off track.
You can handle
So
any distractions, right?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's most important. Not getting distracted is very, very important for a tough exam like GMAT, because it's not only about what you know; it's more about applications, timing, mentality, perseverance, discipline, a lot of these things. So yeah, that's what my story was with the GMAT.
All right, I'll give you the kind of standard question of, why did you want an MBA and why did you want to do it at that time?
So I wanted to do an MBA because at some point I had understood that I did want to make a corporate transition, because I mean, one was of course the leadership skills which I had been groomed for since childhood. Actually, I give the credit for this to my teachers, my professors, since school, college, in the military, medicine. Everybody had identified me, earmarked me for leadership. And of course, MBA is the place where leadership skills are actually sought out.
Mhm.
And of course, corporate transition was on the radar, number one. And of course, can you repeat the second question? Is it about
Why at that time did you decide to? Why was this the right time
okay?
to MBA?
So yeah, so why was this in my case, why was this the right time is because I went to an elite medical college in India, which is also a premier military academy. So but in doing that, you do have to serve certain bond periods with the government, in my case the Indian government. So in my case, well before the bond period had ended, I had decided to make this move, so I started planning in advance. So that is more the question of why now, why an MBA now. But I was more sure about doing an MBA.
As you know, I did solicit some questions on LinkedIn, and so I'm going to intersperse some of them as we go. And so Cheryl was asking, what made you select HEC, and which other programs did you consider?
Okay, so what made me select HEC? I can go on and on for a number of reasons. I have a lot of good memories from HEC. In fact, the first and foremost for me is the international experience, the true meaning of diversity, internationalism. That's what you realize when you get into the HEC MBA program. We have like 50 or 60 odd nationalities, or even more. I mean, if you include the other programs, the master's programs, etc., even more, like 90 plus or something nationalities. People, it's actually people from all over the world. It's not like people just from France or something. And of
It's your
course,
own United Nations, right?
you can call it the mini United Nations, so why not? And it's a very, very conducive atmosphere for learning, a very conducive atmosphere for growing, professional growth in terms of whatever career stream you want to choose: consulting, finance, say investment banking, healthcare, luxury, stuff like that. Then I would say, I mean, HEC has some fantastic curriculum. I mean, academic curriculum, I would say, which is out of the box. I had the privilege of being an elected academic representative for my batch, and because of that, I was often in touch with the higher ups, including the dean and the executive academic director, etc. But and so I know that we introduced newer programs. Like I myself did a pilot elective on Web3 using Metaverse. So we were given like Meta goggles and stuff, and we were doing something, a project on circular fashion, sustainable circular fashion, etc. Something very, very innovative for me. I mean, I never had a background before in sustainability or nothing to do with fashion or war with the metaverse. So that's one example. Then later I ended up doing a certificate course on data science for managers. So there we initially had to complete modules on, say, R and Python, intermediate level programming, and something on basic SQL, etc., and applications of AI, ML, generative generative AI, and large language models, etc. Something, I mean, coming from my background, medical doctor, army officer, no relation at all. But the thing is, this is very, very relevant. I mean, AI, for example, is very, very relevant even to the healthcare field, to the military field, to all sorts of industries today, is taking over the whole world. And of course, so HEC is HEC always introduces these innovative courses. There are similar courses on sustainability, there are courses on finance, etc., etc. And another academic offering, probably a novel kind of offering I can talk about, is we have something called crash courses. I think the name may have been changed slightly now, but it's like you are taught a full subject of MBA that is supposed to be taught within, say, a trimester, 3 or 4 months, something. It's taught in 2.5 days. The good part is the batches are mixed. You have MBA candidates from the 2 or 3 batches of MBAs, plus you have the executive MBAs who are way more senior, 15, 20 years senior, and you have much junior master students. And the thing is, because it's a gamut of people with a wide range of experiences, wide range of educational and professional backgrounds, you get a lot of different perspectives that helps you grow together. So I think this was something novel, something new. And we had like a lot of guest lectures who were like actually senior, very senior C-suite level corporate professionals. They're not really professors coming in. So I think these kinds of stuff, for example, were really helpful. uh, Besides, of course, HEC has a very, very lovely campus. We have a chateau, a castle. The French word for castle is chateau. I don't think many business schools can boast of that. And of
Definitely.
course, we host the MBAT. The MBAT is the MBA Olympics, which is the most widely recognized MBA sports. It's not really a sports tournament. It's more like a sport and cultural tournament for all MBAs all over Europe, and nowadays I think it's spread even to a few US schools and a few Asian schools, etc. So those elements, and there are too many things to do at HEC. I mean, it's about picking and choosing. Then it's about being in France and in Paris. The campus is actually slightly off Paris in a more suburban setting. But yeah, Paris is not far. And I mean, of course, so who doesn't want to go to Paris? So multiple reasons. I can go on and on and on about HEC, and we can come back to that later probably.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, your enthusiasm is infectious, which is terrific. And I mean, when you were in the application stage, did you have that clearer picture? All the things that you're talking about through your research, had you become pretty clear on that, or had you really only scratched the surface of what to expect?
Well, to be honest, I had more or less scratched the surface. Yes, I had done quite a few networking calls with a lot of people. That's a tip for prospective applicants for whatever good school you're applying to. You have to do networking calls with alumni who are just out of MBA, current students, and more senior alumni as well. But yeah, I didn't know all of this. I knew only a few of this. And yes, I mean, coming back to the second part of your question, it was like which other schools I'd applied to. So of course it's the standard bunch of other top European business schools, etc. For the US business schools, I was a little more experienced. I had like 7 years of experience, and I was like 29 because of my military service bond. So I mean, I had lesser hopes there, but then, well, I'll not take names, but one of the US M7 top schools wanted me rather for the executive MBA, which I wouldn't have preferred then, because I mean, I was kind of changing career and changing geography and sort of industry also in a way. So yeah, so Europe made more sense to me that way, because I mean, in the top European MBAs, usually candidates are more experienced. 29 or 30, I think, is the median age. And that's true for all the top MBAs: HEC Paris, INSEAD, LBS, etc., etc. So a lot of reasons why I chose Europe and HEC, of course.
So among all of those programs, which, as you say, some of those programs are also incredibly diverse internationally. So how did you come down to HEC being your choice, and how difficult was it for you to decide between the offers you got?
I would say I spoke to a lot of people as I networked with a lot of current HEC students, a lot of alumni, more recent alumni, and much more senior alumni, etc., from multiple nations, to get a very holistic picture. Like I'm Indian, so I spoke to Indians who had been at HEC. I spoke to French people. I spoke to Chinese or Japanese or Britons or Americans, etc. I spoke to military alums. I spoke to medical doctor alums, etc. And I think that narrowed down the choice to me. The picture was definitely becoming clearer. With all due respect to all the other top schools, which I believe are equally good, but I would say HSC, as per me, is still better because of a plethora of reasons. I mean, of course, I spoke about the academic offerings, etc. Then, of course, the location in Paris, HEC is classified as a Grand École. Grand École is like the top institution of its domain, in this case management, in France. And HEC actually has a lot of very senior people in, say, politicians, including like French presidents and prime ministers coming out of it, as also like a lot of top CEOs, like I believe the former AstraZeneca CEO, and a lot of other senior CEOs, etc. In fact, HEC is called the CEO factory of the world. There's some statistic. I don't know if it's still true. It's like HEC produces more CEOs than even Harvard, Stanford, and Wharton.
Wow, I didn't know that
There is some
statistic
such
actually.
statistic, yeah. All of these reasons, and most importantly, I would say it is about the connect. I saw a very deep connect with my military and medical doctors upbringing, the training,
Hmm.
and the values that HEC espouses. I think that is most important at the end of the day, because you want to go to a school where they are selecting people who have the same mindset. You have been groomed in a certain mindset. So in my training, in my upbringing, my formative years, we were taught about discipline, we were taught about perseverance, we were taught about focus, no divergence from your goals and stuff like that, and like generally being a good person. I mean, of course, MBA is competitive, corporate is competitive, but not not putting down others, still helping. It is being collaborative rather than competitive, things like that. I mean, helping out others, sharing knowledge, and expanding your own horizons, respecting everyone. Respect for diversity, respect for equality, non-discrimination, values like these, I think, resonate very strongly with me. And this is what I was taught in my earlier careers. And HEC has the exact same values. That, I believe, was the biggest tipping point for me, besides the fact about the highly international experience.
Yeah, I definitely want to highlight one of the things you just mentioned, which is how you reached out to a lot of people, both current students and alumni, and of course, admissions staff, and you went all types of nationalities and industries. And this is a mistake that I do see lots of applicants make, where they only talk to their, their country people, and get stuck with that. And I'm always pushing people to go beyond, as you as you did. So I think that's terrific, and other applicants should absolutely follow. Don't get stuck with don't stay in your own group. Also at school, right? Sometimes people get in their own groups and don't network as much, and that's kind of missing that opportunity a lot, isn't it?
True, absolutely agree.
So coming from your, again, non-traditional applicant, what did you go about writing in your essays? Did you find a kind of life theme, or what did you write about?
So the HEC essays are usually very targeted focus. I mean, I would say it's more about judging your values as well as a kind of looking for a kind of clarity in what you want to do. Although I mean, you know, and I know that all kinds of MBA applicants write a lot of things. I mean, people may write, "I want to get into luxury and retail," and end up as a consultant.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
But I mean, it's still good to demonstrate. I mean, your short term, your immediate goals post MBA, your say short term goals after say 3 to 5 years, your medium term and long term goals. If you can demonstrate some kind of clarity, that's definitely better. If you can demonstrate the ethos of HEC that I just talked about, uh, demonstrate resonance with the ethos, that's most important. And to be honest, well, I'm not on the admissions committee, but if I were, that would be one criteria of how I would be selecting candidates. Because I mean, you have a lot of talented candidates, so from diverse backgrounds, etc. You have to be background agnostic. Absolutely, the GMAT is important, but you have to be background agnostic, nationality agnostic, etc., etc. But at some point, you need resonance with values. You don't want somebody in the long term who does not see eye to eye with you in terms of the values. So I think values are very, very important. That's what I again stress about in the applications. So I think people should read up the website, etc., and get a sense of the values and write about it. And besides, talk about international experience. So I've been talking about how international HEC is. So of course, it's not really about international experience. It's more about international motivation, as they
Hmm.
call it. So it's more about if you have worked abroad or studied abroad, which is different from where you were born or the citizenship of the country you hold. That's absolutely a plus point. But even if you haven't done that, uh, it's still okay, as long as I mean you have shown international motivation in some form. I mean, you may be like participating in some major Olympiad, or I mean working. And nowadays it's much more easier. I mean, I'm talking about. When I was applying, it was just the beginning of the post-COVID situation when remote work was opening up. Now remote work is very, very acceptable and stuff. So now
Almost
candidates a better
standard, right?
opportunity. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And also besides that, I mean, say if you have been traveling, a lot of people. This is one thing I respect about my European friends. They like to travel a lot, and they don't compromise with the travel. Coming from an Indian background is like you quit work or quit academics to travel is kind of unheard of. It's a sin. But I would say traveling abroad is a great experience in itself. And well, now that I'm based in Morocco, so this is a dream destination for a lot of people who come to travel, explore the country, etc. I was in Australia end of last year. That's a similar situation for a lot of people who love to travel, explore, etc. That's education in itself. So you can demonstrate international motivation very much through your travel experiences, etc. Also.
Excellent. And you wanted to actually make a triple jump through the MBA. So going into it, did you have very specific things you hope to gain from the program that would, facilitate that, pretty massive life change? And maybe you can explain to people what triple jump is for anyone who doesn't.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So, so the triple jump is a topic usually used in the context of HEC Paris. It may be an advertising line, but it is true. And the triple jump means you change your post MBA, at least you change your sector, your industry, your sector or industry, your function, and your geography. So that is the triple jump. I say I have been lucky to have been able to actually achieve a triple jump. I mean, you can call it either a double or triple jump. So I was already a doctor, so I'm working in consulting, but a lot of it is healthcare and social impact, which I have experience of. So you
Hmm.
can call it double or triple jump. But anyway, so I have changed my function, my industry, and my geography. Definitely, and yes, there definitely was the expectation of the triple jump from HEC, which is why the school is that famous. And of course, everybody who goes there strives for that. I know people who have been like corporate lawyers trying to get into, say, luxury and retail, or say somebody who was an investment banker now trying to go into startup for gaming. and somebody going into AI from a very different healthcare background or stuff like that. And that's possible. I know a lot of people who have done that, and it's very, very possible. So of course that was definitely an expectation from HEC, and I'm kind of lucky. But yeah, I also did work a lot hard to get there. So yeah, so overall it did work out.
Excellent. All right, so I'd love to now switch to really diving into the program and your actual experience. Which intake did you do, and maybe you can explain the different options that HEC offers.
Okay, so I was part of the September intake of HEC Paris, and HEC has two intakes, September and January. So the program is like 16 months long and extendable to around 22 or 25 months. I mean, with various exit options, various pros and cons of the same. And there are a lot of different options for internships and jobs, and you can do an MBA project, or you can do a certificate, an industry sponsored certificate like I did. You can do crash courses, you can do the regular courses, and a lot of things are customizable, especially in the third. We have 4 terms. So the first 2 terms are the standard MBA curriculum, and the third and fourth terms are pretty much customizable. So often, a lot of courses, the September and the January batches take together, which is a good way of creating bonhomie, etc. And of course, we have a lot of parties and stuff, and so HEC, we have a lot of parties. I forgot to mention that as one of the reasons people should be looking at HEC, because in MBA you work hard, you study hard, you have to work hard, you apply for jobs, internships, etc. You learn consulting, you learn casing, you learn whatever investment banking or stuff, but you have to let loose, let your head down, right? So in fact, we do have a pretty good pub of our own within the campus, which is run by students. So yeah, so uh, yeah, so that's about it. Uh,
Yeah, well, let's go on with the fun aspects then.
ah,
Tell us more about some of the various exciting things that you were able to do just for having fun.
Oh yeah, yeah, sure, certainly. So HSC will give you a lot of opportunities. So I am a relatively decent singer, let me call it that way.
Nice.
And I took the opportunity to sing. I was one of the organizers for the talent show. So the MBA batch is a big talent show. We have a huge auditorium and stuff. And I took the opportunity also to sing and organize the thing. That's for people who love like performing arts, singing, dancing, etc. Then there are a lot of opportunities for sports. Well, I am Indian and I love cricket, and I'm a reasonably good player, I would say. And well, never ever had I imagined that I would be able to play cricket in France at a competitive level. So I was part of the HEC team for the MBAT tournament, the
Oh,
MBA
wow.
Olympics tournament I mentioned. So yeah, and we were pretty serious about the cricket practice actually. We would go on and on practicing on Saturdays and Sundays quite a few times. Besides that, when you get to HEC, you have a lot of travel options on weekends. I mean, I visited at least visited quite a few countries. I've been to Netherlands, I've been to Spain, I've been to Hungary. Uh, I've been to the UK, both Scotland and England twice, and stuff like that. So yeah, so I mean, there are people who travel way, way, way more than me, and yeah, you can travel very much within France. So like I've been to Bordeaux. I'm a wine person, so I've been to the Bordeaux wine tour.
Ooh, me too. Me
Uh,
too.
oh wow, that's great. I've been to Champagne as well, the Champagne region. Again, a wine, again a wine area, of course. Besides the Versailles, the area full of castles and the ancient palaces and the ancient capital of France, etc., where the kings used to live. That's very, very close to where HEC is. Uh, it's like 2 stations away by train. So that's a great place to be in. So there are plethora of options, and as I say, there are plenty of parties. So we have parties even which are themed, like we have parties themed on Latino music or African beats music or Indian music or something. We have celebrations of various festivals, like we celebrate say Indian festivals, say Diwali for example, or Holi, or say Thanksgiving, or we celebrate Eid. We have a Eid, Ramadan get together, etc. Uh, a lot of things. We sell. I know a lot of my batchmates from Latin America. They do fantastic barbecues. So we have a huge lake within the HEC campus, and we used to set up the barbecue there, and they would barbecue. And so we have these kinds of things pretty often. So a lot of options there to let your hair down, to relax. A lot of options for sports, football, tennis, basketball. There's a pretty big indoor basketball court, come volleyball court and tennis court and stuff, and a lot of things. So yeah, plenty of options there.
Wow. Let's come around to the academic side and the extracurriculars as well. As I know you joined a lot of clubs and various other programs. So take us back to the beginning. You know, your first 2 terms. Let's maybe talk a lot about the fundamental phase. Those first 2 terms.
Okay, so the fundamental phase, yeah, as the name suggests, it is fundamental. It's important to your basic understanding of concepts, especially if you're coming from a sort of non-traditional background like me. Although I was not really newly exposed to management education, I had some executive postgraduate diplomas in management from India before, which I had done while I was still serving in the army. But even then, I mean, the level of competition, or say the level of candidates, the level of very highly qualified candidates that you get at HEC, so you have to keep up with them. So for a person like me, say I had to focus extra on, say, corporate finance concepts, or we had something called financial markets, uh, which I later focused on. And I mean, by now I see, even though I do consulting, some element of it does involve a lot of financial markets analysis. And I was working on creation of a fund for a major non-profit entity. So yeah, those concepts are important. Similarly, say if you want to get into consulting, for example, we have subjects in like strategic management, etc., by a very senior ex one of our professors was a very senior ex McKinsey partner. And uh, and then he transitioned into academia because he was bored of the corporate hustle. And he made it really interesting, the way he taught strategy, etc. Similarly, you have other subjects in, say, marketing, which is of course very, very essential to the MBA program in general. So yeah, the core subjects are pretty much standard across all business schools across the world. But then the way they are delivered are a bit different. But well, HEC delivers it pretty good, in a manner that even, say, non-traditional candidates such as myself can catch up, not only catch up, but also adapt well and even lead the way for others. So yeah, absolutely. And in my case, I was also like elected an academic representative and stuff. So that is good in a way, because I tried to be a bridge between my batch, my class, and the academic committee, etc. So we tried to propose new courses or certain changes to the courses, etc. And to their credit, the academic committee was pretty receptive. For example, the industry sponsored certificates that we were talking about. So I did the data science certificate later, which was like a joint collaboration between Ecole Polytechnique, the top engineering school in France, and HEC Paris, and sponsored by a top investment banking company called Natixis. And initially, MBAs didn't used to get credits, academic credits for this. But once we highlighted this to the committee, they were very, very receptive. And whatever happens at HEC is with the consent of the French government, by the way. French bureaucracy is not considered the most receptive, but being at HEC has its advantages. So I mean, to their credit, the academic committee got these changes approved, and a lot of MBA students have benefited since from these
So
kind of.
it's not even the schools committee that has to approve it. They actually have to get government approval for some of
Yeah,
these.
as I said, that HEC is considered Grand École, or the top school of management in France. And as I said, I mean, like CEOs and presidents and ministers come out of there.
And so you know, HEC is known for learn by doing, right? Can you talk more about the different formats of classes that you had? Some case study, various other types of hands-on lectures. Can you kind of walk us through the different formats?
Yeah, so certainly. So absolutely, you're right. The different formats of teaching are what makes the HEC MBA program very, very interesting. So first, you of course have the lecture method and stuff, the one way method, but it's not really one way, because a lot of communication, two-way communication or didactic communication is encouraged. People are expected to answer, and in a lot of subjects you in fact have a lot of marks for participation, say up to say 30% of marks for participation, which is great actually. I mean, instead of it being a boring lecture, uh, the professor gives the snippet of an idea, the candidate responds, and we have to take into consideration here that all these candidates here have like say 5 to 7 years of experience or more maybe. So so what is written in academia may not be the same as their own experience from their professional careers, and the professors take that idea, build upon that, I mean, qualify or disqualify part of it, or add to their own idea, and that is how a discussion grows. So it's all about the discussion, and that's a fantastic way of teaching. Besides, you mentioned about learning by doing. I just remembered, I was thinking about we had something called an outdoor leadership seminar. So having been in the military for long, I absolutely realized the importance of it. And in fact, this course is also led by like mostly ex-French military officers, much senior officers, colonels and above. So I mean, we had you can call it a team building exercise, but it's absolutely learning by doing. So you have something like a simulation of, say, a river crossing, making a makeshift kayak and stuff, and I mean, crossing via rope, or I mean, building blocks and stuff like that, or making a strategy plan for some evacuation and stuff. That this is interesting, and it's very, very important. Well, I may have had some exposure to this given my background, but a lot many people don't, and it is very, very important. But to be honest, even I took something from it, because well, maybe the French style of military leadership is a bit different from that in India. So and both have the pros and cons. So even I learned a few things there. So that's definitely learning by doing. But then we also have things like a social impact project called social impact project. I wasn't part of it because I was on exchange in Australia, but then there are others who do it. So they go to a commune in France, and they build say kinds of model homes for the local disadvantaged community, etc., poor people. That's certainly a great way of learning by doing. Besides, I was talking a lot about the certificate programs, etc., say in finance or in artificial intelligence, or in say sustainability. There you have a lot of projects which are related to, I mean, project implementation, etc. And yeah, so learning by doing, absolutely, HEC definitely believes in that. Besides, yeah, the crash courses that I was initially mentioning, where you have this discussion with people from all levels, I mean, very young master students to your own level of MBA students, 5 7 years experience, very senior C-suite level executive MBAs and corporate guest lecturers. That's a great way of teaching, in my opinion. Plus, besides your official classes, you have a lot of case coaching sessions, or say tech coaching sessions sometimes, or interview preparation sessions, etc., also organized. And this is done not only by the careers team or the HEC talents, we call it. It is also done a lot by the clubs. So I was president of the healthcare club at HEC Paris, and one of the highlights was that me and my team, we organized the career trek. So a career trek is something like a 3 day or 4 day program where you visit, say, 10 or 12 companies. Uh, and we visited like leading companies. We went to the Eli Lilly headquarters in France. We went to the Becton Dickinson. We invited somebody from Becton Dickinson. We were in talks with other big companies, etc. We had 10 12 big companies there, so that was a big highlight. We were even invited to Accenture's healthcare arm, Bionest Consulting's headquarters in France. So yeah, that was a highlight. Similarly, I was part of the consulting practice. I was director of business development there, and then advisor later. And uh, the great part about that is this is not a case coaching club. This is where you actually do client projects, pro bono, mostly pro bono client projects. So we were
Mm.
working with a big Spanish client at one point, for example, and with some other clients, etc. Also. So yeah, so it's been a great journey, and I was lucky that later I was chosen as an MBA ambassador. So of course, I've already been speaking to a lot of prospective MBA candidates, trying to help them a bit. So yeah, so that helps your own network grow as well while helping others.
So for all of the positions you were talking about, like becoming a president of the healthcare club, what's the process that you have to go through to join the clubs and especially get into these various leadership positions?
So it is mostly elections, and I would say elections highlight your leadership skills, because here you are getting elected by your peers who are equally competent and equally qualified, people from a very diverse set of people. People coming from US, people coming from Argentina, from India, from China, from South Africa, and you have to get this whole bunch of people together. And not only nationalities, it's also like somebody is a doctor, somebody is a strategy consultant, somebody is an investment banker, somebody is a corporate lawyer. You have to get all of them aligned, and then a president, you form a group. So your batchmates elect one group, and then you have a president, and the president and his core team decide who is a vice president, who is a director, who is a advisor, etc., etc. So yeah, so mostly it's elections. There are also some bodies, like I was part of HEC Net Positive, which is a pan HEC association. It's I would call it a sustainability think tank,
Mm.
because we also did a few great pro bono projects with on sustainability. Like I was working on an agriculture based project. There was a project with Capgemini. I was not part of that, but the Capgemini and some other big companies as well. And yeah, so that's pan HEC. And there, for example, it's a bit different. There it's like you have to give interviews to get selected, and the existing board selects the next board, and so on and so forth. I was heading the marketing and communications department for them for a bit, and one of my contributions there was I roped in more MBAs there. Previously, it used to be only like mostly master students. So HEC is a huge institution. It's not only MBAs; it's also a lot of executive MBAs, a lot of master students, etc. So you have to rope them in. Even as in the healthcare club president role, I tried to do that, and I think it worked well. I mean, it gels well when you get people of different experience levels, different academic backgrounds, etc., coming together and getting their different perspectives. It's important to talk to people. It's important to be receptive to ideas and to broaden your own horizons, rather than have a very fixated mindset.
Do you remember having any particular favorite classes, favorite professors?
Okay. So it's hard
Too,
to
too many
choose.
to choose from, or
Too many to choose from. Yeah, problem of plenty. That's not truly. I would say there are some I particularly remember. There's a subject called Art of Leadership, and maybe I'm a bit biased towards leadership given my background and stuff. And it was taught by a guest professor who was basically the CEO of a hotel group in the US. So he would fly down to give this lecture, and his journey was really, really inspiring. He talked about how he went from being an immigrant in the US, from a low-income country. From he joined the hotel as a janitor, qualified as a pilot, but became a CEO, and then a guest lecturer at some of the USM7 schools, HEC, and other top institutions. So really inspiring for me, actually. So similarly, there's a course on social impact fundraising that I did. I'm a bit passionate about social impact, because even while I was in the military, I was directing quite a few government of India projects for low resource settings, wash campaigns, and educational campaigns, etc. So this was something I really loved, the way the course was delivered, etc. And later, I mean, it proved very beneficial. Even in my current consulting role, I'm a lot of it involves social impact and healthcare. So you never know what works out, but yeah, it's great to do all these courses.
And talk more about what you did in the customized phase. You mentioned an exchange, and with electives, what process does HEC use for, if everyone wants to be in the same elective? Is there a bidding system, or what's the process for actually getting into the elective courses?
For the elective courses, yes, there is indeed a bidding system, as I believe exists in other top B schools worldwide.
Yeah, many.
Uh, yeah, absolutely. For the certificate courses, it is a proper application. So, for example, and it's competitive. I believe, for one of the finance courses, in fact, a lot of people with finance background were rejected.
Wow. Hmm.
Which caused a little heartburn, but it is competitive. I am just saying that to say how competitive it is,
Yeah.
because these are industry sponsored courses. You get you do these courses for free, but it is industry sponsored, and you get proper certifications, etc. Besides, you may stand the opportunity of landing a job or an internship, because you get to meet these people upfront, the CEOs, founders of startups, and various senior people in companies. You have business challenges, etc. So yeah, those are important. Besides, you can have an option for an MBA project, or I believe there used to be an option for entrepreneurship project, something you want to do for a startup creation, etc. So there are these options, and besides crash courses that I talked about, compressed lectures in 2.5 days. I forgot to mention there that one of the attractions is, after all this brainstorming, after studying a whole course in 2.5 days with a mixed batch and guest lectures, we do have cocktail parties.
That's a good way to wrap up.
Yeah.
Did you do any crash courses? Which ones did you do?
Oh, I did a lot of crash courses. The two courses I talked about, Art of Leadership, Social Impact Fundraising, were crash courses. Besides, I did others on, like, building business relationships in Asia. I did a crash course on risk management. I did something on strategic brand transformation, and well, I did something that was. It was not a crash course. It was called a pilot elective, the one with Web3 and metaverse in circular fashion. So I did a lot of these. These were new at our time. Now these are pretty well established and proven to be a success, huge success. And yeah, they're great courses.
So what else did you do during that phase? You mentioned, was it a exchange to Australia? Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah. So I went on exchange to Australian Graduate School of Management, University of New South Wales, Sydney, which is the top university there. And that was a great phase, because not only I took some fantastic electives there, I got to work in a strategy consulting project, it was more of a client consulting project than an academic one. I was working on digital transformation for a leading customer service company, the leading one in Australia. And I mean, we even got to visit the real call centers and stuff. I've never been inside a call center before. And yeah, so the best part of that was, so our client's office had a view of the Sydney Harbour. So
Beautiful,
amazing.
beautiful.
And besides, I did some other courses, very challenging, but very, very fruitful. Some in quantitative business modeling. So that's like following up on corporate. That's like corporate finance with some element of advanced Excel and some element of advanced statistics. So very, very challenging for me, but yeah, absolutely a pleasure learning it, and great learning value there. Besides, I did something on negotiations and strategy. So that's a thing, you learn how to negotiate. I mean, I have been negotiating a lot since I was in the military. You have to negotiate with a lot of people, uh, the opposing army, with bureaucrats, with politicians, locals, etc. And of course, in the corporates, you have to negotiate with clients. As a consultant, you have to negotiate with clients, and the more senior you grow, this function will keep growing, etc. So yeah, that's a great subject as well. And besides, following up on my social impact interest, I did another sort of, you can call it an elective or crash course on social impact, entrepreneurship, and innovation.
Hmm.
So it was a fantastic time. But besides that, I was also kind of working with the university itself as a research assistant, but more as a consultant actually on a
Hmm.
biomedical engineering project. So yeah, that was a great time, of course.
And did you choose a concentration?
I didn't exactly choose a specialization, we call it.
Or sorry,
I
sorry,
didn't
yes, a
yeah,
specialization. Yeah, yeah.
I didn't choose a specialization because I went on the exchange. But then since I did the certificate in data science, it's as good as a specialization, I would say.
Excellent. And what about the career services side? Did your goals change from where you started to what you ended up in? And talk more about the various things that the school was providing to prepare you to actually find your job post grad.
So yeah, so there are a lot of there is a lot of career support, yes, indeed, at HEC, and I would say it is two pronged. So part of it is done by the official HEC talents team, which is the career center, and a lot of it is a lot of it comes through the clubs, the professional clubs. So we have the consulting club, we have the healthcare club, we have the, I mean, there's a PVC club, there's a finance club, etc. It's a tech club. So all these clubs organize their own career treks where you visit a lot of different uh, good locations, visit a lot of companies. So I talked about the healthcare club, our career trek, which was in Paris. But previously, I went on a career trek to Amsterdam. That was a sustainability career trek. So
Hmm.
we met a lot of startups, established companies, even sustainability commodities exchange companies and stuff. So yeah, so there are a lot of avenues. The consulting club, for example. Is of course most sought after, as I believe it is the case in all business schools, because I mean everybody definitely looks at consulting as a fallback option sometime or the other. And of course, so we have a lot of case cracking sessions, interview preparation sessions, cover letter writing sessions, uh, that kind of stuff. And yeah, even we have a lot of pooled HEC material on case cracking, etc., collated from a large variety of resources, including like MBB resources, etc.
Hmm.
Similarly, you have something on tech case cracking or investment banking related training, etc. So yeah, so there are a lot of avenues. For healthcare, for the healthcare club, for example, like, given that I was president, I was in touch with a lot of these big firms, Servier, Eli Lilly, Becton Dickinson, Johnson and Johnson, etc., trying to get them to get them on campus, arranging lectures from by alumni, by company representatives, trying to organize a career trek, a career fair, or something like that. So that kind of stuff, yeah. And besides, the career center also does help out with a lot of these kinds of networking help. We have a lot of career fairs in HEC, which is a great thing. So I believe we have a career fair in October, we have one in May, we have one in January or February, and we have 5 or 6 different career fairs basically, apart from all these club treks and stuff. And a lot of guest lecturers coming in, a lot of alumni and company reps coming in for standalone presentations, either virtually or in person. If you do it in person, it's followed by a cocktail. That's the win-win for the students. You have all the big.
I'm sensing a theme, Anurag.
So if you are in France, there's no way you can't have the delicious finger food and the champagne.
Now I'm sad we're doing this virtually. I want to have a cocktail with you after, so
Absolutely,
we'll
absolutely.
have
Would
to do
love
it
to.
another time. But
Absolutely. So yeah, and besides, I mean, all the big companies. I mean, say McKinsey, BCG, Bain, say all the big top consulting companies, and also companies from other domains, say the fashion industry, etc. Everybody comes in. The finance companies, sustainability companies, everybody comes in. They have their standalone career fairs as well. So we have, for example, a sustainability career fair. We have a consulting career fair, a finance career fair, and we were trying to do a healthcare career fair. We couldn't succeed there, but yeah, it's I think on the cards. So we have these individual area or domain specific career fairs as well.
So now describe what actually happens in each of these career fairs. I mean, if you're going to the consulting career fair, what's actually going to happen during that period?
So yeah, so if you go to say the consulting career fair, so there'll be the usual suspects, of course, the MBBs, Roland Berger, say Oliver Wyman, Arthur De Little, a lot of these. I mean, all the top consulting firms there. So there'll be company representatives, both senior and junior. I mean, I even happen to meet like principals of companies, etc. No, senior principals, etc. There, who I mean, if you network well, people may end up giving you a referral or something as well. That's important for of course for applications. And besides, of course, you get to know about the company. There were a lot of companies I had no idea of that existed, and that are actually well established companies doing well, great balance sheets. They have the money, they have the resources to hire people. At and the motive of an MBA is to get a higher paying job, of course, or transition career. So consulting is an example. It's true for all other sectors as well. And yes, of course, so you get to know about company deadlines, their application processes, internship openings, or full-time application processes for say like multinational companies. If they're say based in say Germany as well as France, or in say Singapore, you get to know about the different geography specific hiring processes, or visa sponsorship, or like whatever local language requirements, for example, etc. Also, so yeah, it's pretty important to go to all these career fairs, and HEC does a lot of all of these.
So when did you actually begin applying, and did you do any internships?
Yeah, so I did a lot of internships. I mean, I did a lot of internships primarily in consulting. And I did an internship with the top American social impact consulting firm, and I was working with a top five garment manufacturer. I'll not take names because of client confidentiality. Then I was working briefly for a Canadian AI firm, another internship. It was AI consulting. I was in the strategy team, of course. So all my internships were in strategy and consulting, uh, which is my choice, by the way. Before that, I was working remotely for a short while for a France-based edutech company. Edutech internship again in the strategy part of them. They were a
Hmm.
startup going to scale up. Later, I also kind of interned or worked part time with my current firm remotely initially, and then I joined them full time again in strategy consulting for a major healthcare project for a major US based non-profit, global non-profit. And also in Australia, I worked for the university itself. And
Hmm.
I mean, I was doing a consulting project there as well, which was on biomedical engineering. They had a breakthrough with patents, and I was designing their business development strategy. And I had another internship, which was a France-based medical edutech startup focused in Africa. So I was leading that project as CEO also for a short time. But I
Wow.
mean, so I had a lot of internships. But I mean, to be honest, the path wasn't easy. So I have faced my fair share of failures, pretty big share of failures. So I've talked about these lot of internships, but I would say I got rejected by a lot many more. I mean, and especially in say in the cutthroat world of consulting, it's like we even got rejected by some of the very top tier firms, say in the absolute final stage, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. And you have things like cooling off period and all that kind of thing. But anyway, whatever happens, and things work out well.
From the internships, did you get like how many offers did you get through the internships?
I did get quite a few offers actually.
Yeah.
I can't disclose the specific details
Oh, of
because of
course. It's
confidentiality concerns. But yeah, so I chose the current company where I'm in at Casablanca, Morocco, a top social impact and healthcare focused consulting firm here, because I like the work culture. I was already kind of working part time with them remotely previously, and yeah, that's what I chose. But yes, I had some other offers as well.
And how do you like the new position and being there in Casablanca?
Oh yeah, fantastic! It's a fantastic office. Great people to work with. Great people to hang out with. Pretty much, everyone is very approachable. We have some fantastic projects with major national and international actors. So we work on a lot of Moroccan and Pan African projects here, and it's related to my domain, healthcare and social impact. But we're not limited to only these. We also do other projects. Even I've been part of other projects and proposals. So yeah, and Casablanca in general is a very international city. I think and Morocco in general, I think, is a dream destination for a lot of people nowadays. People are trying to get a remote job and shift to Morocco to
Hmm.
live. A lot of people also trying to find full-time jobs here, of full-time physical jobs here as well. And of course, I've been around in Morocco a bit. I've been to Marrakesh. I've been to the northern city called Tangier, and they have the city called Chefchaouen, which is called the Blue Pearl here. Very beautiful cities, amazing cities. Casablanca by itself is very international. Amazing places, amazing nightlife. Casablanca has some fantastic restaurants. Moroccan food is awesome. So you find also a lot of blend of French influence here, because it was sort of a colony at some point of time. In the northern parts, you find some Spanish influence also, because it was a Spanish colony there. Besides, it's a very international city. Moroccans are very friendly people, and it's a great experience.
And why don't we move on to a couple kind of miscellaneous questions that I know you saw earlier from LinkedIn. And so Samuel had asked, what do you see as the future of business education with the fast pace of innovation? Will a classroom study adequately prepare an individual for business management?
Uh, Very interesting question,
I
actually.
thought so, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, in my opinion, classroom study will always be important, but and will adequately yes, and will adequately prepare an individual for business education. But I mean, things have, but if done in conjunction with like learning by working kind of projects, or AI based projects, or virtual projects. We live in a world that is changing every day, as mentioned in the question, and we cannot deny the fact that we are dependent on AI or virtual reality, or it's more of a hybrid world today. So you can't deny the importance of classroom based education. That always remains important. So an entirely online kind of MBA, for example, uh, doesn't have the same value. No, nobody wants to do that, because you just don't have the same experience. It's the MBA, for example. I'm using the MBA as a metaphor for all kinds of business education. So it's like, it's more about the connections you build. You build connections with your peers. You build connections with the professors, with guest lecturers. You network with people who have been alumni and stuff. People, who have made the transition. You are looking to transition into people who have gone into an interesting company you didn't know exist. And net. From my experience, I'll say networking with a beer in hand goes a much longer way than, say, doing, say, what people call a virtual coffee chat.
Sure. Hmm.
You can chat, surely you can't have a virtual coffee, and the coffee element that is missing there is the human element that is missing there. That's my opinion there. So you need the classroom education, but it has to be supplemented with a lot of industry based projects, or AI based projects, or whatever, hybrid projects, for example.
Definitely makes sense. And the last question from LinkedIn was from Suresh, and he was asking a pretty massive question that we could talk about for hours separately, I'm sure. How will the private healthcare unfold in the years ahead as the gap between public and private healthcare affordability and availability is widening, especially in developing nations?
You're very right. We can absolutely
Where to
talk about
begin,
it
right?
for hours. Yeah. So, in a nutshell, I'll say, sorry, what's the question? How will the private healthcare evolve as the
Yeah,
gap?
how will private healthcare evolve as far as the affordability, public and private healthcare affordability and availability is the gap is widening, and
Hmm.
especially considering developing nations.
Yeah, I would say that's something I can definitely answer, because this is something I myself work on, and for top international clients also. And say I'm Indian. I have the experience for the Indian Army Medical Corps in low resource settings, and I'm kind of applying that and my business skills and my MBA knowledge to my current projects Pan Africa.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would say the private sector will evolve, private healthcare sector will evolve uh, to facilitate more affordability, accessibility, and availability of essential medicines, healthcare supplements, or healthcare accessories, say contraceptives, for example, uh, to uh, to the common citizen, to the ordinary people, the end consumers, in low resource settings. He talked about developing nations in low resource settings, basically, and that is because one of the major reasons is post the COVID pandemic. A lot of the countries have realized that it is much more important to spend on health. Even India, for example, India being a huge country, which is now I think the fourth or fifth largest economy in the world, still pre-pandemic we were spending like something like less than 1% of the GDP on, or just
Wow.
above 1% of the GDP on healthcare. Post pandemic, it's almost double. It's I think 1.8 or 2% of the GDP. Similarly, African nations have had this realization because their entire supply chain was broken. The entire healthcare supply chain was broken because in fact they don't have active pharmaceutical ingredients that are produced locally here. Most of the manufacturing, there are some manufacturers but very few. There is a statistic that says there are only about 375 African pharmaceutical manufacturers for a massive continent of 1.1 billion people. Compare
Wow.
that to say India or China or America, and
Hmm.
everything has to be imported. When you don't manufacture locally, when you don't have the supply chain capabilities, a catastrophic event, an epoch making event like the COVID pandemic, for example, happens, or say disruptions because of say the Russia Ukraine war, for example, that's affected the whole world supply chains, or to some extent even the Gaza war that's going on right now. So these conflicts, for example, they disrupt the global supply chain, and it is the poorest countries, the least developed nations that suffer the most. So these countries are spending more. One good example I'll cite is that of say Rwanda, where the government has taken very proactive steps in trying to promote private healthcare companies. They are promoting like a lot of big private healthcare companies in promoting startups, promoting innovation, healthcare, setting up healthcare manufacturing facilities, state of the art vaccine manufacturing facilities, drug manufacturing facilities, etc. So yeah, so yes, the private healthcare companies will step up. Private insurance will come into being, which is private healthcare insurance is a big challenge nowadays. So that will come into being, become more affordable. Drugs have to be made more affordable. I myself was part of a big team at my current company. We were working on creating a major fund that will help small scale medical distributors and wholesalers,
Hmm.
and in return the benefits will be passed on to the end consumers, etc. So so yeah, the private companies will step up, but then there has to be some government support also. There has to be research and innovation support also. And yes, I believe as the world becomes less discriminatory, more people get education, people see each other as equal, which was not the case say, even 30-40 years ago. But slowly we have a change for the better. I think things will improve.
All right. Well, why don't we kind of start heading towards wrapping up? And as one of my last questions, let me ask, what do you feel you're going to miss most about HEC and your time there?
Uh, I would say I would miss the whole journey. It was excellent. It was extraordinary, but it was stressful at the same time because I was applying for all the internships and jobs and stuff, and while bearing up with all the academics and a lot of other things, say consulting preparation, etc. Yeah, so I can't choose one part of it. I'll miss the whole journey. It's a whole holistic journey that I'll miss.
And is there anything that I haven't asked you that you want to make sure you talk about?
Okay. Well, maybe maybe since a lot of MBA prospective MBA applicants, etc., have already approached me previously for opinions, tips, whatever. So I would say, I would say, yeah. So in a nutshell, what is important is networking well. Doing your own research about the schools you are applying to. This is one common mistake most candidates don't do, and people you're networking with, you need to respect their time. So you need to do your own research before you speak to them. So I've had candidates reaching out, following up for months and months. Okay, come, please, I need to have a call. And then they ask me something like, will I get a job after the MBA? I mean,
Right.
I know that's important, but I'm nobody to ascertain that. So not this kind of work. It's rather to make a qualified statement like that I read, for example, that HEC places X number of people in luxury, or say INSEAD places X number of people in consulting, or LBS places so many people in finance. So if I am targeting, say, luxury consulting, which school do I target? That's a better kind of question to ask. I mean, something like that. So yeah, these things. And of course, I would say my tip for MBA applicants would be like, be diligent, be perseverant, try to focus on your GMAT or GRE, etc. You may have hiccups, you may suffer failure sometimes, but it's a long journey. And if you consistently put in efforts, you will succeed eventually.
Oh, well, I think that's a fantastic place to end. So, Anurag, I can't thank you enough for sharing all of your insights, and best of luck on your journey that's obviously just begun in Casablanca. And I hope we get to meet in person at some point and have a beer, glass of wine, or a cocktail.
Absolutely, my pleasure, Jesse, and I hope this interview is helpful for our listeners. And absolutely look forward to meeting you sometime.
Sounds great. And as an ambassador, can people reach out to you if they are applicants? Are you still in that role, or no time now?
Yeah. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn.
Okay. All right. Sounds great. Thank you so much, and talk to you soon.
Absolutely, look forward.
All right. So I'll end the recording there.